Hello and welcome to another painting video. In this video I'll be painting this bust of the one and only Judge Dredd. I found this STL on myminifactory.com, and since Judge Dredd is one of my favorite comic characters, I had to paint this up. Before I began, I took some photos of the model to see where the light hits exactly. This helped me greatly while applying my highlights. Let's see how I did it. After priming the model black, I used my paintbrush to base coat the jumpsuit with Incubi Darkness. Of course, a brush will do the same. Then, to darken the color, I spray Nuln Oil all over the jumpsuit. Now I will slowly build up the colors. First I use Incubi Darkness for the first layer. Next, I use Stegadon Scale Green to build up my highlights. Then I use Dark Reaper. I make sure to leave the original layer still showing, just focusing on where the light will hit the suit. The real highlight is Thunderhawk Blue. I use it sparingly on the most bright areas. Finally, I use Fenrisian Grey to add reflections on the jumpsuit where needed. The jumpsuit should read like leather, so using Fenrisian Grey on select areas really make the material look shiny. I also use my photos for reference. On to the gloves, elbow pads and his many pouches. First I base coat everything with Caliban Green. To shade, I apply Nuln Oil over all the areas. Now I bring back the Caliban Green to the raised areas. Next, I layer Kabalite Green on all the spots where the light will hit. I repeat the same step, but now I mix Kabalite Green with some Nurgling Green. Finally, I take some Nurgling Green and add the final highlight. Again, the material should read like leather, so I try to make it look shiny. I looked closely at my reference photos to see where I needed to paint my highlights. Now let's try some non-metallic gold. First, I base coat all the armor that will be gold with Rhinox Hide. Next, I layer on Mournfang Brown. Make sure to leave the Rhinox Hide in the recesses. Next, I make a mix of Averland Sunset and Mournfang Brown. I layer this on all the armor, making sure I still leave the previous layer showing. Then I take some Uriel Yellow and repeat the process again. With each step, I make sure the previous layer is still visible. With a mix of Uriel Yellow and Wraithbone, I highlight the armor. And the final highlight of the armor is pure Wraithbone. Well, this turned out not so much as a non-metallic gold, but more a cartoony looking yellow. Luckily, it fits the model. I probably should have glazed on the layers more to make better transitions. This was my first try, so let's try again with the silver parts. First I base coat the chain and zipper with Stormvermin Fur. Next I take Mechanicus Standard Grey and highlight the parts that will reflect the light. I do the same with Administratum Grey. And again the same, but with a mix of Administratum Grey and white scar. Finally, I add a reflection of white scar. I think this was a little bit more successful undertaking of non-metallic metal. At least it reads as metal, I think. I tried to do a more stippling on effect, which I think works really well. That famous chin and scowl needs a base coat of Cadian Fleshtone. I needed 2 layers to get a nice even base coat. Then I shade the skin with Guilliman Flesh. Now I'm going to layer on some brighter colors, slowly building up. First I use Cadian Fleshtone. Then I make a mix of Cadian Fleshtone and Kislev Flesh. Next I add a new layer of Kislev Flesh. And lastly a mix of Kislev Flesh and Flayed One Flesh. To make the lips and the tip of the nose a little bit more red, I watered down some Carroburg Crimson and applied it. I really took my time with the skin and glazed on the different layers. This allowed me to build up the skin tone, and I must say I am really happy with the result. Now I'm going to paint the helmet. I love the design of this. First I base coat the dark blue area with Leviadon Blue. Then I pick out some spots where the light will hit the helmet and layer this with dark Reaper. With Thunderhawk Blue I make the first highlight. And the second highlight is Fenrisian Grey. The previous layer was stippled on. This allows me to pick out some spots with white scar, to really sell the idea of light reflecting the helmet. On to the visor. This I base coat with Wraithbone. Then I coat the visor with Aethermatic Blue. Now I take some Aethermatic Blue and mix that with white scar. I apply this to the open areas. This to even out the color and to start the first highlight. The last highlight is pure white scar. The red trim of the helmet I base coat with Khorne Red. Then I apply the first highlight with Evil Sunz Scarlet. A thinner highlight of Wild Rider Red. And finally some well-placed dots of Fire Dragon Bright. As you might have noticed, I used the same colors besides the base coat on both the helmet and the jumpsuit. You can clearly see a difference, yet it does belong together. This is important as the jumpsuit is leather and the helmet is, well, whatever material they used. I want to try to make the base a dark red, as I think this will nicely offset the blue tints of the bust. First I base coat everything in Evil Sunz Scarlet. To darken the red, I add some contrast paint Blood Angel Red to the base. Then I shade the base with Nuln Oil. I'll be adding 2 highlights. The first one is Evil Sunz Scarlet. And finally I use Fire Dragon Bright. And here we have Judge Dredd, striking a pose and scowling at some drocking perps probably. This bust is amazing and a lot of fun to paint. I try to get away from the GW paint method of highlighting everything and focus on the areas where the light actually hits. I also tried some non-metallics with varying results, but that's okay as these kind of projects are great learning tools. This is a small departure from the usual GW products, but I hope you'll pick up a cool Judge Dredd bust yourself, or maybe apply my techniques for something else. Maybe some Necromunda Enforcers? Be sure to check out my Instagram where I post my projects and behind the scenes stuff on a regular basis. For now, respect the badge, and thanks for watching.